The Rangers won this weekend series behind a great start from Kumar Rocker and a less great start for Jack Leiter. We're talking about why those two had very, very different starts. All that and more. This was a Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Kumar Rocker's second great start in a row since being called back up from the minors. A rough day for Jack Leiter, a rough weekend for this offense. Looking ahead a little bit at this series against the Orioles and the return of Nathan Eovaldi. Before we get into all of that, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Now, the Rangers took 2 out of 3 this weekend against these Pittsburgh Pirates, who normally have not been very good offensively, but they had a great day on Sunday against Jack Leiter and against Caleb Bosley in a battle of two teams with relievers with very difficult to pronounce names that look nothing like how they are spelled. But I want to start with the good news of this weekend, that Kumar Rocker is looking exactly like the prince who was promised. This is a great start from Kumar Rocker. It didn't end in the best way, coming out there for the 6th inning, getting 1 out, and then walking in 2 consecutive batters. The first one, a very, very competitive at bat, but the second one just on 4 pitches, and one of those runs was allowed to score by Sean Armstrong. But overall, a good day by the bullpen and a good day for Kumar Rocker. This was his second start since coming back up from the minor leagues. After Nathan Eovaldi went on the IL, he will be back this weekend. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the third segment. But Rocker had just had an implosion the start before he got sent back down to the minor leagues. It was just an overall brutal outing against the Rays in Tampa Bay, with him not mixing his pitches well, with him not covering first base, leading to a couple of runs, and then not turning around and throwing the ball home and just kind of losing his head. It was just, it was a really rough game for Rocker. And he would tell you, it was not his best game. It was probably one of his worst games, if not his worst. I mean, maybe that game against the Reds where he got just absolutely shellacked was a little bit worse, but I think mentally, I think that game was a little bit more difficult for him, but he went back down to the minor leagues. And one of the things that Rocker really needed to work on and needs to be better about it and will help him have a lot more success is mixing his pitches. Same thing for Jack Leiter. Leiter did not do a good job of that in his start this weekend, but Kumar Rocker did. Now, he has scrapped the slider, or maybe now the slider is just being called the cutter. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but he's got multiple different versions of that breaking ball, multiple versions of his fastball, and he's also got a changeup. And while both those breaking balls are really good pitches, the cutter / slider and the curveball, both of them are very good pitches. If you just become reliant too much on one pitch, you become predictable. But this was a very good job of him mixing these pitches pretty well. He used the cutter 37 times out of his 89 pitches, basically, 42% of the time. And then he threw 19 sinkers about 20% of the time, four-seam fastball 16 times, a little bit below 20% of the time. Curveball he threw 13 times, about 15% of the time, and then he threw 4 changeups as well. Now, the changeups were not particularly great. He did not get a whole lot of swings. They were mostly non-competitive pitches, but still he threw them. And it was something to keep these hitters off of just sitting on 1 or 2 pitches, because when you become a 2-pitch pitcher, unless you are a reliever, especially when you're facing the lineup, multiple times through, 2 or 3 times through, once they've seen those pitches, it becomes a lot more easy to sit on those pitches. And unless they're, true top of the scale 80 grade pitches with exceptional command of those pitches, once you've seen a pitch a certain number of times as a big league hitter, it becomes a lot more hittable. And Rocker did a very good job of mixing those pitches in this one and just keeping his head in this one. Also did a good job of holding the runners for the most part. Did have O'Neill Cruz steal third base on him on just an incredible speed by him. His 26th stolen base of the season. Kind of not particularly his fault. Could have been a little better about, holding on Frazier, but Adam Frazier, who stole second base off him. But overall, pretty darn good. And also pretty darn good of keeping those Pirates hitters from doing any damage with runners in scoring position. They went 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position on the day. Part of those were his at-bats. Part of those were Sean Armstrong coming in and Hobie Milner having a very, very good day, getting 5 outs, 2 of those via the strikeout and a perfect inning and 2/3 of work. And then Chris Martin coming in for his second save of the season, lowering his ERA down below 1.5. A perfect inning with a pair of strikeouts, and he looked really darn good. This offense, we'll talk more about that later on, but I really want to focus on the difference between Rocker and what Leiter did. Leiter has overall had a few more starts where he's looked just absolutely brilliant than Rocker has at this point. But with this most recent start, I really would have rather him. It would have been really nice for him to be able to end it on his own terms and end it with a clean inning and finish out that 6th inning. But there was a battle. I mean, Brian Reynolds grounded out sharply to start that inning, a sinker that was middle that was hit 104 miles an hour, but just right to Marcus Semien, thankfully. And then he walked Spencer Horwitz on a 9-pitch battle. The last 2 of those pitches weren't necessarily competitive. He got ahead 0-2, but just was not able to finish him off. His stuff was kind of declining just a little bit at that point. Wasn't really able to rear back and touch in the upper 90s. Still was in kind of the mid 90s. The slider didn't really look quite as sharp. The changeup, he just didn't have a feel for. Same with the curveball. He didn't really have that great of a feel for it at that point, but still would have loved to have seen him finish off that batter. And then after he walks Horwitz on 9 pitches, he goes and faces Nick Gonzalez, walks him on 4 pitches that none of which are particularly competitive. And then he gets pulled from that game. But overall, a very, very good start from Rocker, who was able to work himself out of trouble. 4 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings, just 5 hits allowed, 3 walks, 2 of which in that 6th inning where he was pulled, and 2 earned runs, only 1 of which was he on the mound for in that game. But this was a great start for him and a not great start for Jack Leiter, who only made it through 4 innings in this Sunday game where the Rangers staked him out to a 2-0 lead. They dropped 2 runs in the top of that 2nd inning, and while they were only able to score 1 run for the rest of this game and did not do a great job with hitting with runners in scoring position because they had a whole lot of opportunities they did not cash in on. But Leiter was kind of the opposite of Rocker. He was very, very heavy on just his 4-seam fastball, which was getting a lot of swings and misses to his credit. But when you become just a 1 or 2 pitch pitcher, even a 3-pitch pitcher, just having the multiple versions of that fastball, I think has done so much good for Jack Leiter. But he threw 34 4-seam fastballs in that start on Sunday, and he only threw 5 sinkers. Now, his 4-seam fastball is a very good pitch. The metrics on it, the command on it has been much better this year. The velocity on it has been much better this year. But again, they're big league hitters. I know they're the Pirates' big league hitters, so not the best big league hitters, but they are still big league hitters. And if you are just becoming too predictable of all you're throwing are fastballs, 4-seam fastballs at the top of the zone, breaking balls below the zone to try and get chased, then they can just sit on anything with spin and say, okay, that's not going to be a strike. I'm not going to have to swing at that. I'm not going to have to do anything with that. I can just sit on that 4-seam fastball and crush it. Because he only threw 4 changeups as well. Again, I talked about it the last time Jack Leiter had a start that was rough, which was literally his last start out there, that I really think if he could figure out how to throw a splitter, it would be the perfect complement to that 4-seam fastball and kind of pitch a little bit like Nathan Eovaldi. It would set up everything, I think, so darn well, a little bit more than that changeup, which he did get a swing and a miss on the one time that they swung at it. But still, it was just not a great outing for Jack Leiter, who could not put hitters away with 2 strikes. I mean, it was just brutal to watch. He would get up 0-2 and then just would not trust his stuff. He would get too predictable, too non-competitive, too many non-competitive pitches, and just kind of leaving himself out there to die. And to get obliterated. That's why he only made it through 4 innings. Even though he had a couple of strikeouts, he did walk 2. He allowed 5 hits. He worked around having runners on decently well, but he threw 88 pitches just to get through 4 innings and 4 plus inning, because he was pulled in that 5th inning as well, not being able to finish off and be done on a clean inning, having to turn it over to Caleb Bosley, who had just a really brutal day, got absolutely obliterated by this Pirates offense that did the thing that the Rangers did not do offensively this weekend: hit with runners in scoring position. Now that sounds like something new. This show is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. No Shell's Wonderful Pistachios are the grab and go with ease, and that satisfying crack of opening each shell, it's like snack meditation. So whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Shout out to the Everyday Meeting Locked On Rangers, your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be talking about this first game of the series against the Baltimore Orioles. Hopefully a massive, massive win against a team that is unfortunately doing much better as of late, but still a chance for this Rangers offense to hopefully continue to build some confidence in themselves, because this was another weekend where the Rangers just could not hit with runners in scoring position. They had 12 at-bats with runners in scoring position in this game on Sunday, and they only got 2 hits. Just 2 hits in this one, despite 12 chances. Not a whole lot of, extra base hits with runners on. No home runs in this one. Literally just 1 extra base hit in general. Just the double by Sam Haggerty in this one was the only extra base hit that the Rangers got. And they were getting on base, though. They had 5 walks in this one, 2 of them by Adolis Garcia, 1 of them by Marcus Semien, 1 by Langford, and 1 by Haggerty. Langford, who was back in the lineup after missing a couple games with a little bit of stiffness in his back. Very, very good to see him back in this lineup, especially with the Rangers being down yet another bat. Jake Berger left Friday's game a little bit early after swinging and missing through a sinker by Mlodzinski, I believe is the name of the pitcher. Mlodzinski. Yes, of course, that is how you pronounce that name. But unfortunately, he is landing on the IL, not Mlodzinski, but Jake Berger, with a left oblique strain or sprain or whatever it is. He is on the 10-day IL, and the Rangers are calling up Justin Foscue, who has an 850-ish OPS in AAA so far this year. He's got 10 home runs. He has been hitting decently well, not as well as he has in years past. But I'm excited to see if the Rangers are going to give Foscue much of a shot to hit at the big league level. Right now, it seems like Zeke Duran, according to Bruce Bochy, is going to get the lion's share of the at-bats, the plate appearances at first base, because he has been swinging the stick a little bit better. I am a much firmer believer in Zeke Duran and his future big league career being a little bit better than Foscue. Not as much because of the hitting side, because Foscue's at least been hitting for power this year, and Zeke has not really been doing that, which is a little bit frustrating from a guy who I thought at one point, I'm not so sure now, could have been an everyday regular with 750 to 800 OPS and 20 to 25 homers while playing a premium defensive position of shortstop or second base or center fielder or somewhere. It hasn't really been the case as much this year for Zeke Duran, but Zeke Duran has that defensive versatility, and I think he's going to stick around longer. He's also got a lot more athleticism and speed and just overall defensive value that Foscue doesn't really provide. And last year, it was a rough go for the brief big league tenure of Justin Foscue. Had an 0 for 41 streak, which before Jock Peterson's 0 for 42 streak, however long it was, that broke that record this year. That was previously the worst over streak in Major League history, but he did have some successes early on in his big league career before he got placed on the IL with, ironically, an oblique strain, and now an oblique strain is what is being used to call him up. He had an oblique strain himself after an RBI hit off of Josh Hader for his big league hit, an RBI double, I believe. We'll see if Foscue is going to get much run time. I don't know that he's going to get all that much, but again, this is just incredibly frustrating to watch this offense do the same thing it's been freaking doing over and over and over and over again. Even that game where they scored 6 runs on Friday was not really a great job of hitting with runners in scoring position. I mean, the Rangers, even the win, they scored just 3 runs. Again, man, if this team scores 4 runs, they are unstoppable, but it is just so infrequently that they can actually score those 4 runs. They went 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position in that game on Saturday that they won. They got an RBI from Sam Haggerty. They got a RBI single from Corey Seager. That was the only hit with runners in scoring position. Seager also worked a walk in that one. And Simeon did a good job of playing the small ball, of just getting a sac fly, doing whatever it takes to get that runner over and get that runner in. You don't always need hits with runners in scoring position to score runs. Heck, the first run the Rangers scored wasn't counted as an RBI. It was a hit with a runner on base, Zeke Duran working that walk, and then on a truly horrendous misplay by Frazier out there in left field, who just let a ball get by him, just like O'Neal Cruz did on Friday. I mean, this was just, what a weekend for terrible outfield defense for these Pittsburgh Pirates. Kind of, reminds me of like, oh, this is an important thing to have good outfield defense, with the Rangers very much do. And the Pirates very much did not. And that led to 1 run, which was the difference in this game. But it was not a 1-run difference on Sunday's game. And just another frustrating start from Jack Leiter, who just continues to back up. I mean, I don't know exactly what's going wrong once he gets to, 2 strikes, but a little bit of it is him being, too predictable, a little bit of him trying to be too perfect. It's just really frustrating to watch when he has been so darn good at times this year. The stuff has been so darn good, and watching him just come up there and just not be quite good enough. I mean, his last 3 starts have been really frustrating to watch. I mean, he had this start against Pittsburgh where he didn't make it through 5 innings. Then he had his last start against Kansas City where he got obliterated for 6 runs and couldn't quite make it through 6 innings, despite the Rangers, trying to fight him back into that game. And then the game against the Twins, where he got lit up for that 3-run bomb by Byron Buxton and couldn't make it through 5 innings there. This put a lot of pressure on this bullpen, who might have to pitch another bullpen day at some point in this series against the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, the Rangers right now have Patrick Corbin listed as the projected starter in this game tonight. And then tomorrow, TBD. The day after that, TBD. Which, again, these Rangers cannot keep getting away with throwing this many bullpen days. It is just asking way too much of this bullpen. Now, I think Jacob Latz, if I were a betting man, he would be getting a start, or at least an opener, and then being a starter at some point in this series. Whether that's on Tuesday, I would lean more towards Tuesday, because the Rangers are going to get Eovaldi back at some point this weekend, which probably Friday at the earliest. That would leave, TBD for Wednesday. And if you go Jacob Latz, who threw 5 2/3 innings in his last outing as the primary pitcher in a bullpen day where he only allowed 1 run, which was on a Jack Caglione home run that was a 97-mile-an-hour fastball at his eyeballs, which I think basically any other hitter in baseball would not be homering on that pitch, especially lefty on lefty. I mean, that was a very, very impressive bit of hitting from the rookie slugger out of Florida in Jack Caglione. But I really think that Latz has been built up to, go multiple innings. He was a starter for most of his time in the minor leagues, just a late change to being a reliever. Has had some starts in the big league before. I believe his big league debut was one of those emergency starts, and I believe it was in 2023 maybe it was in 2022, the year before, in Cleveland against the Guardians. But he's shown some aptitude for that. He has had good strikeout numbers this year. For the most part, he has done a good job of limiting too much hard contact. He has been a very, very good pitcher in general, not just a good reliever. The one thing he hasn't been super great about is limiting those inherited runners. And if he's getting a clean inning to start, then that's not something that he particularly has to worry about. So I think that's going to happen at some point this series, probably Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, if you can't get bulk from Jacob Latz, that's going to put you in a really, really tough spot. And maybe the Rangers go Jacob deGrom on what would be normal rest at that point. But after throwing, 80 something pitches through 6 innings on about a week's rest, or a little bit less than a week's rest in his most recent start, that's kind of been the trend with Jacob deGrom. I would be a little surprised if they went short rest there. Heck, if the Rangers had an off day on Wednesday and then had a game on Thursday before this weekend series, I think that would be ideal for how it would set up for the starting rotation. But the Rangers are getting some help in their rotation with the return of Nathan Eovaldi. We're going to talk about what this rotation would look like when Nathan Eovaldi returns, and could Jack Leiter be sent back down to the minor leagues a la Kumar Rocker? Maybe. We'll talk about why or why not and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Right now, they've got all kinds of different action for Major League Baseball. Of course, it is basically just Major League Baseball going on. Of course, the most important sport that's ever existing right now. I know you're probably shocked to hear that the Los Angeles Dodgers are the betting favorites to win the 2025 World Series. Second favorites, of course, it's the Yankees at plus 600, but the third favorite at the Detroit Tigers at plus 850. Rangers, they're down there. They've got some odds at plus 4,200, just a bit of a long shot for this team to figure some things out. But if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and you can get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, the Rangers this week face off against the Baltimore Orioles, who were projected to be one by many different people a playoff team at the very least this year, and this year just have not really had it in almost any capacity. This has been a really truly abysmal year for the Baltimore Orioles, especially on their pitching staff. I mean, their starting pitching has just been horrendous this year. The Rangers have been exceptional with their starting pitching, and the Baltimore Orioles, their team ERA plus, not just starting pitchers, but the whole team, where 100 is league average. The lower you go, the worse it is. They have a 78 team ERA plus, excuse me. If that is 78 team ERA in general, that would be truly monumentous. But you look at their starting rotation, and outside of Tomoyuki Sagano, who was a 35-year-old signed out of Japan, who is kind of a junk baller, has about kind of a la Seth Lugo, not elite any one pitch, but has a whole bunch of different pitches and just knows how to get out. So he's made 15 starts for them so far this year. He's got a 3.5 ERA. I don't think the Rangers will be seeing him at all in this series. They will be seeing Trevor Rogers, who the Orioles traded for at the deadline last year, who gave the Marlins one of their best starting offensive players this year, a guy who they probably could use in Kyle Stowers in their outfield this year, because their offense has been down. Gunnar Henderson has come on as of late, but he had a really, really rough start to the season. Cedric Mullins has been cooling off a little bit as of late. He has been very, very bad defensively in center field, so hopefully the Rangers can take advantage for some more bad defense, outfield defense in center field. They have not gotten a lot out of Jordan Westberg, who hasn't played all that much. Dylan Carlson, who they signed in the offseason, he has not been giving them all that much. Colton Cowser just got off the IL. He has been hitting well since he got off the IL, but just overall up and down this lineup is not nearly as formidable as I would have thought heading into the season. Heston Kjerstad, who was one of their young outfielders, a lot of promise. He has been hitting awfully this year. Adley Rutschman has been, fine. He started off incredibly hot for the first month of the season and then very much cooled down. Jackson Holliday is starting to look like, the kind of player that they hoped he would be, a little bit better than big league regular. He's still just 21 years old, but outside of those guys, offensively, the only real threat that kind of scares you at all is Ryan O'Hearn, a guy who, if the Rangers do decide to be buyers at the deadline, which I'm not sure that they should be with how bad they've been so far this year. Ryan O'Hearn has been a menace offensively this year. He's hitting over 300. His on base is in the 380s. He's slugging 480, a 148 OPS plus. Offensively, he has been their best hitter and one of the best hitters in baseball by far. But the starting rotation has been so horrendous as of late. Charlie Morton, I mean, his first 5, 6, 7, 8 starts were just horrible. They moved him to the bullpen. He was still horrible. He's kind of figuring things out a little bit more as of late. The Rangers will see him in the Tuesday game of this series. Hopefully they can just obliterate him. They're also going to see Trevor Rogers, who this year has been better than he was last year. Last year he was truly awful offensively. He has a 3.12 ERA in 2 starts, a little bit 1 out shy of 9 innings in those 2 starts combined. So not a whole lot of depth there. The bullpen for this team has been, mostly fine. They got Felix Bautista back, who's been very good. Keegan Aiken's been pretty good for them. I mean, most of their high leverage guys have been pretty solid. It's just the starters have been so horrendous, and the offense has not been able to, claw back into games. It's hard to, get up to hit a whole lot when your offense is already down, 5, 6, 7, 8 runs in the second or third inning, like they have been for a lot of this series. But the Rangers are getting back their ace. Talking about the difference in starting rotations for these two teams. Well, in this series, I don't know how different they will look. Patrick Corbin hopefully will be able to give the Rangers at least a quality start and some decent innings in this first game of the series, and hopefully outduel Trevor Rogers. Hopefully the Rangers can just kind of explode offensively against this very, very, very not good rotation, and can kind of limit these bats who are clawing their way a little bit back into it, but just have not overall been that good. But Evo, we will not see in this series, unfortunately. The Rangers have been saying that he is probably going to start at some point this weekend. He is not going to need a minor league rehab start. That is a great sign for this Rangers team, who right now has 4 arms in their starting rotation. And they're in the middle of a 6-game and 6-day stretch, and you just used 3 of your 4 starters in the first 3 games of this series, which is kind of how things work. You got Patrick Corbin, and then you have a bunch of TBD. And with Jacob deGrom having to have a little bit more caution, I don't think that we will see him in this Wednesday game. Ideally, you would. Ideally, you would set it up to go Patrick Corbin in the first game, then you have a kind of bullpen Jacob Latz game in the second game, and then Jacob deGrom in the third game of the series, so that you bring back Nathan Eovaldi either on Friday or on Saturday, or heck, maybe you bring him back on Sunday. But you bring him back at some point this weekend, and the Rangers desperately need him, because it's easy to forget how freaking good Nathan Eovaldi has been, because it feels like it's been forever since he has been on the IL. And it will be basically a month that he misses. Remember when the Rangers said, oh, no, he's not going to miss any time, and then he's out a month? It was basically the exact same thing as Jack Leiter with his blister issue. But right now, you look at the Baseball Reference WAR leaders on this Rangers squad. Nathan Eovaldi, who has not played a game since he was placed on the IL June 1st, is still first in Baseball Reference WAR at 2.7. Jacob deGrom at 2.5, and then Wyatt Langford at 2.3. They are still relying on a lot of those wins that they were helped to bank up with the offense was even worse than it is right now, when Nathan Eovaldi was just at his best. In 12 starts this year, Eovaldi has a 1.56 ERA in 69 and a third innings, which I think is more than just a little nice. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi has been better than I think we've ever seen him outside of him in the postseason. But heck, even this stretch, he never had anything quite like this in the postseason, which, again, you're facing off against the best teams. The situations are very, very different. But in terms of just regular season dominance, this is a 12-game stretch. That's more than a third of the season for a starting pitcher. And he has been unhittable. He has had one game that you could even slightly qualify as bad, and it was, 3 or 4 runs against the Cubs in 4 and I believe 2/3 innings in Chicago. That was the only less than great start Nathan Eovaldi has given this year. And he is such an important part of this rotation. Getting him back and getting the Rangers to having 5 arms in this rotation is so, so, so important. And I think that, whenever Tyler Mahle comes back, which, again, who knows at this point, me personally, this is not any reporting. This is just me kind of reading the tea leaves and throwing a dart at a dartboard. I would think that Mahle probably isn't going to be back until maybe the All-Star break. We're about 3 weeks away from the All-Star break. Maybe he'll make a start or two before that All-Star break, because I highly doubt, even if he comes back, that he will be pitching in the All-Star game. But if and when Eovaldi returns, the Rangers will be at 5 starters. But depending on how Jacob Latz does in this start that he may or may not be having at some point in this series, I have a hard time imagining that we don't see Jacob Latz making a start. We could end up seeing the Rangers optioning not Jacob deGrom, Jack Leiter. There's too many J names in this rotation. Jack Leiter down to the minor leagues to kind of work on some of those things like Kumar Rocker did. Now, Rocker worked on those things very, very quickly, and the Rangers called him back up before they were even really, I think, ready to call him back up. It was just kind of a necessity at that point with the injuries to this rotation. Maybe they're just going to keep this rotation as is with 5 arms, and then whenever Tyler Mahle comes back, they'll be able to make that decision, have a little bit more data on whether Leiter or Rocker is going to be the one sticking this rotation. Or who knows, the last couple of starts for Patrick Corbin haven't been great. Maybe they move Patrick Corbin to more of that long man relief type of role and then keep Leiter, Rocker, Evo, Mahle, and deGrom in the rotation on the second half. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I know this is an important series for these Rangers bats to get going, to hopefully get some hits with runners in scoring position, and just absolutely mash what has been a horrible rotation for the Baltimore Orioles and get themselves back on track and maybe, just maybe, get themselves to 500 at some point this week. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.